Well, I was trying to do it once a week. Sometimes it's once every other week. It's takes a lot of time. It's hard work. I think a lot of people feel like podcasting is something that's pretty easy to do, but it does definitely takes a lot of time. So yeah, anywhere between every other week to every week.
This episode of my podcast story, we have Chris Hood, an esteemed keynote speaker, digital strategist, and the author of the best-selling book, Customer Transformation. With over 35 years of experience in customer success and digital strategy, Chris has made a significant impact in the AI, marketing, and gaming sector. His journey is particularly fascinating, having led digital strategy initiatives at major companies like Google, Fox, Disney, while also teaching at Southern New Hampshire University. Chris is not just a thought leader, he's a pioneer in integrating customer-centric approaches with innovative technologies. He's here to share his inspiring journey on how he's built his show from the ground up and how he's using his platform to transform businesses and enhance customer experiences. Tell us your name and the name of your podcast and what your podcast is about.
Sure. My name is Chris Hood, and my podcast is The Chris Hood Show. And we talk about digital strategy. We talk about artificial intelligence. We talk about customer experience. So we mostly focus on business and technology and how those two things interact with each other to help businesses and companies grow.
How old is the podcast?
I've been doing this podcast for about 2 years.
Wow, 2 years. Okay, wow, congrats on that.
Yeah.
What was like the inspiration that led to you starting the podcast?
Well, I like podcasting, and I think one of the things that I wanted to do was just have some conversations and meet new people and try to find a way to also help people. And I think podcasting was always a good medium to get all of that done. So yeah, it's great to be able to bring people onto the show that have experience, and then be able to dive into a topic that might help somebody, or might be a challenging topic even. A lot of times we get into really strong conversations about what's possible, what can't be done, why it matters. And, I like those types of conversations. And so, yeah, I basically wanted to do something that was a little different, I think. And yeah, so then why not? Right. And then I started it.
Wow. How's the podcast doing now? It's been 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing well. We've got a little bit of a following. We've got, I think we're at, I don't know, 40 episodes or something. But yeah, we're going to keep going and get some more conversations. And yeah, hopefully, I think over the course of the rest of this year and into the next year, we should be able to grow it and have some more followers.
Yeah. How often do you release episodes?
Well, I was trying to do it once a week. Sometimes it's once every other week. It's takes a lot of time. It's hard work. I think a lot of people feel like podcasting is something that's pretty easy to do, but it does definitely takes a lot of time. So yeah, anywhere between every other week to every week.
Okay. Is the podcast audio only or audio and video?
For mine, we're only on audio. It's audio only, but we are looking at making it a video podcast as well sometime later this year. So I've been talking with a couple of video studios where we could actually set up and record, mostly here locally. So I don't know. We might go to video. We might stay audio only. It's a little easier, but I know a lot of people like seeing the video as well.
Why? What's making you entertain the thought of switching to video? Like, why is that worth it for you?
Well, it's just the opportunity to have more reach, get more viewers. When it's audio only, you're limiting yourself to just a couple of networks. You might have iTunes as an example. But then when you go to video, then you can open it up to YouTube, and it's easier to find content. Um, so yeah, people want to watch stuff as much as they want to listen. So I think it's a natural progression to get um, the video side of it as well as the audio side. Just more people that could find the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Well, um, I'm quite surprised that you've not like migrated to video yet, because everybody's like is like jumping on the video as growth method trend, and yeah, but you do have the video.
Yeah, well, I think what we've seen is, I mean, podcasting traditionally was audio only. I mean, that's the format. Um, there has been some argument that if you add video, then it's no longer a podcast. And you could call it a video cast if you wanted to. But by design, podcasts were audio only. But then obviously with YouTube and TikTok and other forms of social media, adding that video component, is something that obviously has gotten a lot of traction. People like to engage with the video content. So yeah, I think more people have been producing both video and audio. But yeah, I mean, it does take some extra time. It requires some, at least a little bit of editing to get it into the various formats so that you can get it out there. So the additional work, for me, I just try to keep things traditional and audio only.
Yeah, I know that sometimes we want to say, oh, it's audio, it's podcast, but it's not video. But I don't know, maybe I'm just going to speak for myself here. I started the podcast because I wanted to have conversations with people. I wanted to share my message with with the world, and I happen to choose podcasting as the medium. So at any point in time, the message is always anything that helps the message, anything that gets like anything that is profitable for the message is what I would always work towards. So if it requires me to do video for more persons to see the stuff, I'll do it. It's not like I'm not like I didn't swear any allegiance to podcast that I took a note that forever be faithful to podcast. No, I just want to get my message across, and podcasting seems like a good platform, and I'm using it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And more people should do that, right? Like you said, you get to have a platform, you get to talk to people, you get your message out there, you get some recognition for your ideas and what you're doing. Podcasting is probably the easiest way for somebody to start creating content and getting that content out there. Yeah, absolutely. Keep doing it.
Yeah. So far, could you walk us through how your podcast gets made from idea to final episode?
So for us, it really depends on the guest and what topic that we might want to have a conversation around. And so we will kind of think of these broad topics, business related topics or technology related topics. And then I'll find an expert or somebody who can talk to, that specific topic. It might even be a question, like that's the starting point. So once we have the idea of what the show is going to be about and what the topic is, what the question is that we want to answer with the guest, then we figure out a date, we schedule the recording, we get together, we record that, then we get that recording edited and produced, and then we figure out the timeline for when to slot it in for publishing. So, if you're doing it weekly, then you may record something 2 weeks earlier so that you have time to edit it and then get it out there, in 2 weeks. And then you just kind of repeat that process. I have
Yeah.
tried to record a bunch of episodes up front, and then you have a bunch of episodes that you can release whenever you want to, but then you start to get behind on when you're going to release. So we have started to move more towards we have a standard time for recording. That way we know, the recording time is the same every week. And then when we release it, it's the same time every week. And then that way we have sort of a good motion and plan a project for what's being recorded and when it's being released.
When you say we, like who are we talking about here?
Well, we and I've got myself, and then I might have somebody who we've got the guest, so there's the we there. But I do have some people who are helping me, with editing, and then also with write ups and things like that. So we do have, or I do have a couple of people that help me whenever I need to.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Is it? I'm just going to take an educated guess, right? From what you've told me so far, that your podcast is a business podcast that connects to what you do professionally, other than the podcast. I don't know if I'm right. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So, how does the podcast tie into growing your personal brand as the key person of influence for your business?
Yeah, well, I branded the podcast. The name of the podcast is me. So, that helps. And then obviously I have that on my website so that people can find me on my website and find my podcast as well as other things that I'm doing. I have books that I've written. And so that as I'm talking, I can, reference the books, or we can pull topics out of the books that I've written and say, we're going to talk about this particular topic. I covered it in my book, but now I can actually talk to a guest about it. So yeah, it's all integral. It's all a part. So I've got my website, I've got my blogs, I've got my books, I've got my podcast. I then do some consulting and public speaking. All of it is connected, and podcasting is just one part of it.
Yeah. Well, so you have your book, your website. Just for my curiosity, and for those of the and that of the listeners and the viewers too. What do you do? Like, what's your business like? Right. I want us to like look at the business aspects. What's it about?
Yeah, my business is mostly I do consulting, and I help organizations with whatever they need to grow. So sometimes that's marketing, sometimes it's customer experience, sometimes it's technology. But yeah, I help companies, figure out a way to grow. And I do that with a lot of different types of industries, a lot of different types of, ways that I can engage. Sometimes it might be just a one day and I go in and do some workshops. Sometimes it's a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's a couple of years. It just depends on what the company needs.
Yeah. Is there any way you, I want to step back to the podcast a bit. Is there any way you, you kind of, you can tell or measure or see how the podcast is doing eh, for the business? Yeah. I'm not talking about just the podcast now. I'm not talking about, how the podcast numbers more. I mean, like, how's the podcast feeding into the business? Is there a way for you to tell that?
Yeah, it's a little bit harder, but the ways that you can do it is ask people. Like on my contact form, I can say, "How did you learn about me?" They might say, "I learned about you on the podcast," and then that's a way for you to track it. You could also track, like, have people come to my website. Have they listened to a podcast episode and then they've reached out to me? Because you can get like Google Analytics, you can put that onto your website and you can track what people are doing. And so if you see them coming to the website, going to the podcast, and then going to contact me, then you can think that, maybe they learned, or, they reached out to me because of something they've heard on the podcast. Sometimes I talk to people, when I'm talking with them one on one, I might ask, like, how did you hear about me? Sometimes it's I listen to an episode of your podcast. So really, there's not a really good way to know if your podcast is directly driving your business, but but indirectly, you can start asking questions and you can talk to people and see if that was a part of the equation.
I have a scenario playing up in my head right now, and that is, if I was the auditor, right? I needed to audit, the business, and cut out some things and say, oh, this stuff we're not supposed to be spending money on this thing. And then I get to the parts where it's the podcast. And you're like, okay, the podcast, yeah, I do the podcast. We'll post every week. And I'm like, this stuff is like a waste of money. What does the podcast do? I'm expecting you to to convince me to tell me that, okay, yeah, the podcast, no, it's not just a fancy hobby project. Of course, podcast is a great hobby project, but I want to look at it from the business perspective for those who are thinking of starting a business podcast, right? Of course, later on we'll talk about the benefits for hobby, creativity, and all that. But like, for what would you tell the auditor? How would you sell the auditor that no, the podcast is not just a fancy old project. This is what it has done, and this is what it will continue to do for me or the business.
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, you've got to kind of think about it as, one, you've got to build awareness of your brand. Who are you? What are you about? And a podcast is a good way of doing that. Now, there's analytics behind that, like how many people are actually listening to your podcast or how many people are actually watching your podcast. This becomes very similar to social media, right? If you've got a big following, if you got a lot of people who are liking your stuff, engaging with your stuff, then that is awareness that will drive people to your website. And even if you can't directly show that that is generating business, you could argue that I've got 20,000 followers on on Instagram. Well, what does that mean? Is that actually helping my business, right? So there's the awareness piece of it that you have to think about. And then, always there's a cost concern, but that's again the beauty of a podcast is oftentimes the cost is very minimal. So, your return on investment is, well, let's say it takes, let's say it costs $50 a month to run your podcast. Well, if if you
I'm
go
guessing
to
I'm guessing the number is way higher for you.
it could be less. I mean, a lot of people are
Yeah,
doing podcasting for free, right?
yeah, yeah,
But let's just keep it's very minimal amount of money, and I generate one deal that's a big deal from that podcast. Well, then it's paid for itself, and it's probably paid for itself for the entire year, right? Like one
yeah,
deal has covered the cost
yeah.
for the entire year. And so yeah, and then as far as like consideration for a hobby, we see a lot of statistics out there that show the popularity of podcasting. We show, there's lots of big named podcasts that they're making millions of dollars because of just their podcast and advertising on it. So popularity is out there, legitimacy is out there, and then you drive that for your awareness as part of your social media and marketing. Yeah, it becomes a very good way to actually grow a business.
Oh, am I convinced? Am I sold that we need to keep the podcasting department? Maybe I've been watching a lot of movies where the government officials they come in and say, "What is this department doing?" And they're like, "No, this department." I'm like, "Nah, scrap it out." Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you explain like that, it makes sense. That I think back in the days, companies used to spend money on radio, TV, and there was no way for them to measure or see what was happening. Like you could just say, "Oh yeah, the radio is," but you couldn't really tell. There are no numbers. But with podcasting, you can see, oh, so number of persons listen to us. Yeah, they listen to us from the US and this and that. And yeah, you've been doing the podcast for 2 years. What would you say is the benefit you've had personally? And I'm not talking about business. I'm saying like the process of podcasting, showing up, having conversations with people. What are the things you have benefited, like in terms of self improvement? Yeah, personal development, something like that.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people before about podcasting. And if you are looking for some area of self improvement, one of the things that podcasting will help you do is improve your communication skills because you and I are having a conversation. So you actually have to talk to somebody. You have to think about what you're going to say. It helps you with storytelling. So if you're in sales or marketing and you want to learn how to tell better stories, then this is a great way to share your background and, improve those storytelling and communication skills. Also, if you were thinking about, let's say you are looking for a job and you need practice interviewing. Well, you're interviewing me right now and I'm answering questions. This is actually a great way to improve my interviewing skills so that if I'm looking for employment, I know how to answer questions and I can think through again, what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? And does it make sense when I'm saying it? So, a lot of areas of business that deal with communication, storytelling, sales, marketing, those experiences, public speaking, interview processing. You can actually improve all of those skills by getting onto podcast. So it's highly recommended to me to go and do it, even if you just want to meet people and talk.
Yeah. Do you do speaking what was the word for it? Like are you a speaker?
Yeah. Yep. I do
Okay.
that as well.
Hey, just a quick break. If you enjoying the insights so far and want even more behind the scenes ideas, inspiration, and tools for growing your own podcast, join my email list at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. You get access to helpful resources, exclusive updates, and the kind of stuff I only share with my email subscribers. Whether you're starting out or already podcasting, there's something valuable waiting for you. Head over to mypodcaststory.com/join and subscribe. Now, back to the episode. Okay. Have you ever had a direct speaking gig that came from the podcast that you say, oh yeah, I had your podcast. I'd love for you to speak on this topic.
I don't know if I have had anybody who has directly said, "Oh, I listened to your podcast. I would love for you to come and talk about that." Typically, it comes from my books, and then the podcast is just bonus. Like, oh, and you have a podcast as well. I've had some things materialize because of my podcast. Usually, what that is like other, like, hey, I would love for you to be on my podcast as a guest, or have you, ever done some sort of, video type of thing? We would love for you to do that. So, podcasting has usually helped me get other types of podcasting, interviews and video types of series, but I wouldn't say that it has directly helped me with a speaking gig. I think it's just kind of helped build credibility and somebody saying, "Oh, well, we want to hire him for speaking, and we can hear that he actually knows how to speak because we can listen to him on the podcast." But yeah, I don't, not that I'm aware of. I don't think I've ever actually been offered a speaking gig directly from the podcast.
Well, if you had to, like, we're in a gathering and you're like, oh yeah, you're a podcaster, and you're like, you had to share a couple of 3 to 5 what we'll call quote unquote podcasting stories, some crazy things, positive and good things, and negative things, of course, that has now happened to you because of the podcast or, via the podcast. What would be those go-to stories?
Well, I'm not sure. I think there's always anybody who's ever done podcasting, you're always going to be confronted with random crazy stuff that happens. It's just natural. There's been podcasts that I've been on where, people are asking questions and I have no idea what they're asking it. Like, I think they're asking me questions because they think I'm a different guest and they've gotten confused. I have once was on somebody's podcast and their internet connection went out towards the end of the podcast. And then I actually finished the podcast by myself solo and thanked their guest for listening in. And, I did the classic ending podcast call out or somebody else's podcast that I was a guest on because they lost connection. So yeah, there's been lots of technology problems. I once was on a podcast with somebody who was at the beach. So,
Seriously? Wait. Wait,
yeah,
wait. I would love to hear that story. What happened? Like, what was the circumstances?
yeah. I mean, I logged into the podcast and the host was on the beach, and all you
You
could
sure it's
hear,
not the background?
yeah, you. I mean, it's a beautiful background, but all you could hear are the waves crashing and the people walking in the background and seagulls and things. I mean, I could hardly even hear the questions being asked. So you kind of wing it, and do your best. But I think there's a lot of people who, you've got people who are very casual about it, and then you've got people who are very professional about it. You got some people in between. You just never know what you're going to get.
I'm surprised. Like, wow, oh, wow! I'll add it to the stories of crazy things that did happen. I just think that it's I would expect that there are higher expectations one would have for a guest, for a host, right? You're a guest, you're the expert. Of course, you are certain things you're supposed to do, like video etiquette. We're never talking about podcasting, like video conference etiquette, like certain things you're supposed to show you. You're supposed to have people moving in the background, all those things, right? But then I'm like, okay, the host is supposed to be like of higher standard because you're the one hosting. It's just like if I come to your house, I could basically come late and do whatever I want to. Of course, I'm not supposed to go to your house and then see that your door is locked. And I'm like, I have to wait. And I'm like, where is he? Where is he? But the guest, like, yeah. So when I hear that a host, I'm like, it is what it is.
It's your podcast, so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
everybody's gonna run it differently. That's why there's so many podcasts out there is, everybody it's like you said, it's a platform and people can get out there and have their own conversations about what they wanna have a conversation about. So, that's the beauty of it.
My issue is not even with the beach. I mean, I could run a podcast with the beach and still have a way to like use microphone and everything such that you don't even get to hear the background noise. And we're still able to have a conversation um clearly. The goal is to like make your still make it easy for you. I'm hosting you, like I'm hosting you. The word host, it's a big word. I'm expected to make you feel at home, feel welcome. And if I'm not doing that, that's that's really a bad experience. Wow. Here I am. I thought I was doing terrible.
No, you're not.
Ah, thank you very much. That means a lot. Okay. So you did say you were thinking of starting moving. Okay, I shouldn't use the word move. More like adding YouTube to the platform where you publish, doing videos and all that. The first question I want to ask is right now, the interviews you do you do it remotely or in person? Or is it just one man?
Yeah, most of my guests are remote, but this is part of the change that I'm looking to introduce is potentially doing these conversations in person. I think podcasting, because of video and because of, we're on a platform called Riverside, because of platforms like this, which make it really easy for people to get together and have conversations. I think that's also one of the reasons why podcasting has blown up so much is it's easy to do and it's easy to meet people and it's easy to have those conversations and it's easy to record those conversations. It's a lot harder to do them in person, and to find times and meet up and,
Yeah, the logistics is
you know,
it's impossible.
right. But there's also the other side of having conversations in person, right? You get a more natural conversation. You get better eye contact. You don't have to necessarily worry about some of the technology problems that you have to deal with. So we're looking at kind of both options to see what might be the best approach. But yes, I've looked at a couple of local studios where we could actually go and then have people come and then do those conversations in person. I'm just not sure, how viable it is for doing it every week.
Right now I'm curious to know when you do the interviews currently, do you do it via are you able to see your guest and is your guest able to see you?
Yeah.
So you're doing
Yeah.
video.
Yeah, we so what's interesting is I'm recording the video because like again on Riverside, you get the video and you get the audio. Actually I think for pretty much all of my podcast I actually have the video. We just have never used the video.
Okay.
So, we've mostly just taken the audio out and then edited the audio and have told people, the video is just not going to be used. Sometimes that actually helps. Crazy enough, some people get more comfortable when they don't have to worry about that they're on video, or that video is going to be seen. They don't have to worry about like what their background is. They don't have to worry about like, oh, somebody is walking behind me. They don't have to worry about that they're on the beach. Whatever the case might be. As long as
Uh,
they're not going to be using the video, then everybody's like, oh, okay, it's audio only, and they can focus more on what they're saying, and less and worry less about what they look like. But yeah, again, I think it all changes if you decide to do this in person. On video, I think more and more people are starting to get, video conferencing. We're doing it for work. A lot of businesses who people are working remotely, they're used to being on video and camera. So I think people are getting a little bit more comfortable with it. But yeah, I don't know. We're still
yeah,
playing with it. See what
my my what would I say now? The thing that I'm that I keep questioning right now is like you're doing everything, right? You have the video, you have everything. The thing now, it's a matter of choice whether you want to say, okay, henceforth, I'm going to tell my guests that I'm going to use this video for recording because right when you talked about getting people comfortable, for me, I was like, how much of a difference does it make, right? Like so far that I've had guests on video, right? I've not really noticed. I've done audio only before, where I don't even see my guest. My guest does not see me. Like it's like we're having a phone call. Like, hello, good morning, how you doing? That's the way we do the interviews. And then I've also done video um interviews too. And video is way better, of course. And you're already doing that. But I've noticed that it doesn't really make a difference whether or not whether, because usually the guests they prepare, all my guests, they prepare as though it's a video conference. And when they do show up, it's a video interview. So I'm just curious, like why? Because I know that if you want to, right? If you want to, you could just like subsequent interviews have them the videos you tell the guests that of course this will be video we posted on YouTube, and then you have your team work on the video and post it on YouTube. So I'm just wondering what's the hold up.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's some subtle things, right? So, when you're producing content that is expected to be high quality, then video editing tends to take a little bit more time than audio editing, right? So if you simply look at a production value, and I said, well, if we do audio only, we can have that done in a couple of hours. But if we do video editing, that's going to take a couple of days, right? Somebody might say, well, there's no big difference there, but there is. There's a time difference that we have to consider. There's also a cost difference that you have to consider, right? If I say the audio editing is only going to be $10, but the video editing is going to be $100. Well, now multiply that out over the course of a year, once a week, all year long. So cost and time are big factors in deciding which one you want to do. And again, this is the difference between, people who will just say record something and then just put it out there, like with no editing, which you can do. You could absolutely just record the episode, don't edit it at all, publish it, and you're done. There's other side of it, which is you want to have it fully produced. You've got, music that is an intro. You've got some sort of video, trailer to welcome people. You've got little pop-up messages that are happening during the episode. You've got their names flying in and out. You've got audio at the end. You've got music at the end. Like when you start to add all of those additional elements, then the cost and the time go up. And so I think the question is probably better for each person individually. Like somebody else, somebody who's recording on the beach probably doesn't necessarily care what their ultimate, video looks like. And so they're just going to record and hit published and you're done. I think for me, in terms of what I'm trying to produce, I'm trying to get something a little higher quality. Think about the difference between like some of the big influencers, or people on YouTube that have huge following. Those videos are taking weeks to produce. They don't just hit record and then publish them. So any big name that you follow, those videos take a lot of time and a lot of, experience to produce. So that's, one thing that I've thought about on my side as to why. The other reasons, as I've shared before, sometimes it's easier just to have an audio conversation. The video is there just to make eye contact and make sure that we can see each other and have the conversation. But, having people feel comfortable, having, more focus on the conversation itself, has helped, some people in the past, some of our guests in the past. So yeah, it's just a preference thing. There's no like, we're just don't want to do it. It's just, it's not hard. It's not complicated. It's not, it's just one of those things that we've opted not to do for now.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess the question to ask right now would be, what will make it a worthy investment? Because what you just explained is not just, oh, I record a video, I'll slap it on YouTube. It's more like, okay, we record a video, we have to get someone who edit the video, who do the thumbnail, who do all those things, right? So we'll be spending money, we'll be spending time and all other necessary costs, right? And maybe probably we'll need to work on the on the video background, have a good setup and all that. So the thing is not necessarily if we want to spend the money. The question is, we're like, okay, is it what, we know there are scarce resources. So we need to allocate, okay, where do we put this, put this. So what would make it a worthy investment for you?
Yeah, I mean, the investment, the age old answer to that is if we spend the money to do video and it's actually generating more leads for us that could actually generate more business, then we know it's worth it. But I can't, like today, I wouldn't be able to say that the difference between an audio only podcast and a video podcast is going to generate any more business than what we're already generating, right? Mhm. I mean, so if you're saying, okay, let's spend more on production of video, but it's not going to actually generate any more sales than we're already generating, then, what's the point? But the flip side is, yeah, we switch to video and we get more followers and we get more leads and we get more awareness and we get more sales and all of that is all definitely a possibility. Like I said, that's one of the reasons why we're actually looking at doing it this year.
Okay. Okay. When you finally add YouTube to the portfolio of platforms you publish content on, I'd love to know. Shoot me an email.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Other than the YouTube, which is part of the to-do list, hopefully it's not the never to-do list. It's yeah. What are that projections or things you do have for the podcast that could be maybe growth, series, seasons, different. There are different ideas and projections. What do you have for the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest things is what we've been talking about, like maybe, the video side of it, maybe in-person interviews. But conversation wise, I think the general format of the podcast and the types of conversations and who we're bringing on to the podcast, I don't think that's really going to change too much. I didn't really design the podcast as being something that is like seasonal based. I've been involved with podcasts where we say like season 1, season 2, and it's like 10 episodes and it's around a specific topic. I think as I start writing more books and I have more content, then those conversations and what we talk about will change. But the general format is probably not going to change much because that seems to be what people like. They enjoy having those, deeper business conversations. They tend to enjoy listening to those types of conversations. So we'll probably keep doing that and then really just make sure that we continue to have new topics that we haven't already covered before, and then stay up to date with whatever's in the news. Look at what's current and present. Like right now, a lot of artificial intelligence. So those are big topics. But yeah, format, the types of podcast, I think that all stays the same. Really, the biggest changes for us right now would be looking at video and looking at in-person interviews.
Thank you very much for sharing the behind the scenes plans.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were starting the podcast today, what advice would you give to yourself?
Figure out what you want to talk about. Make it uniquely for you. Figure out the format, plan. It's always good to plan. Think about what the next, 3 months look like, 4 months. Don't think about like, okay, let's just find a guest and let's do a couple of podcasts. You really need to have a strategic plan, a project plan mapped out for 3, 4, 5 months. Because in most cases, people who start podcast usually will stop doing those podcasts after, say, 3 or 4 episodes, because they realize it's a lot harder than they thought it was going to be. Um, and so if you have a 3, 4, 5 month plan, then you can start to figure out like who are your guests, start to map it out, and then you can execute on that plan without hopefully getting frustrated along the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and thank you so much for sharing your podcast story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun.
Yeah, yeah. Where can the listeners learn more about you, what you do, and yeah.
Yeah. Easiest way to find me is on my website, chrishood.com, CHRISHOOD.com. And there you can find my podcast, my blog, a lot of things that I've been working on, and my books. So, yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, it's all on my website, chrishood.com.
Once again, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast, and yeah, for just sharing everything.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Please, when you do the migration, I don't know why I keep using the word migrate, because I know it's not, you're still doing the audio podcast. When you add YouTube to the um, list of platforms you're publishing on, we'd love to have you back on the podcast so you can, can really look at the business aspects on how the people you needed to hire to add to your team, a couple of things that so I'll really go into the technical aspects, because a lot of business podcasts and business podcasters out there, they're looking to say, okay, is this a sensible move for me? How do I make sure that I get my return on investment? It's a business, and we need to make our money back. Yeah. That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.